Well, that was President Trump tonight in Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania, to discuss the president's relationship with the press and a lot of hot news. Let's bring in one of our close friends, at least mine for too many years to count, and the president's closest advisors, White House counselor Kellyanne Conway. Kellyanne, thanks so much for joining us tonight. We have been discussing the relationship with the press in the crybaby response, which I think is feigned, phony moral outrage, the horrible things said about this president, the horrible types of, violence at anti-Trump protests and smashing windows and the beating people up who have a cap on that says "Make America Great." But now the press is upset because some, 70-year-old lady yells at Jim Acosta. I mean, I don't get it.
I thought Press Secretary Sarah Sanders handled it beautifully today when she really read a bill of particulars, an entire litany of facts, of things that have been said about her and some violence that has been incited against her, that she's the only press secretary in, I guess, U.S. history, to hear her say it, that's needed bodyguards. It's needed Secret Service. I had Secret Service when I got there for much the same reason. But, Laura, I have a slightly different take on all of this. I know that it may be annoying, it may be irritating, it may be unfair, it may even be biased at times. It certainly is. But I'm also not sure it's particularly relevant or consequential. The media's overall approval rating is now at 17 or 20%. I'll give the range. I saw a low of 17, a high of 20% in the latest polls, while the president's approval ratings are ticking upward, and particularly on matters that are of the most consequence to the American people, like his handling the economy, him trying to forge peace and prosperity around the globe. People know what they see, and what they see are their bonuses, their raises, the deregulation, the historic tax cuts. They have confidence in this economy, and they're spending more of their money. I was at that rally tonight with the president. I participated in the roundtable with him ahead of time also. People are absolutely buoyant. They know that beginning with Hillary Clinton, they were referred to as irredeemable and deplorable and looked down upon. They know that Barack Obama, when he was running for president, said these people who cling to their God and their guns and their... He's had other things to say. Just always dismissing them. And this is why it's a very important point. I'm not sure they care anymore. I speak to these people all the time. You know what they care about? They care that they have a president who respects and takes action daily for the military, for the veterans, and for them. And look, let's not mistake what's going on here too. A lot of these journalists have very expensive 7-figure contracts, go on late-night TV, where they can yuck it up with somebody similarly situated who could just laugh all day long, particularly about the women in the Trump administration. Then they go and give speeches. I mean, they speak for free every single day, and half the country doesn't, well, most of the country doesn't listen to them. But then somebody pays them a lot of money to give speeches. Yeah. So they're raking it in. Listen, Donald Trump is absolutely right. President Trump, Laura, is absolutely correct when he says nobody's ever been better for the media than him. The ratings, well, certainly the revenues, the popularity of some of these journalists.
Kellyanne, I gotta jump in here, because when I talk to my radio listeners every day, and I did a thing a couple of days ago, I said, tell me how the Trump economy is affecting your business, your family. Don't sugarcoat it. If it's not working, I want to hear from you. I did this for 3 hours.
We do too.
Okay, 3 hours. People, literally, I'm talking about truck drivers, salesmen, people in medical devices. You know what they say? People are happier. People are happier because they're not worried about waking up and saying, oh my God, am I going to lose my job tomorrow? I knew the economy was great, but until you hear from the regular people just saying, I don't know what these media are saying, everyone's unhappy, people are angry. People are happy because the economy is doing well. The Hill has a big piece today, Kellyanne, about how the tariffs that are trashed by the media and the Democrats, and so some of the Democrats, the media getting that wrong too. The tariffs are very popular with businessmen across the United States, and they want more tariffs to level the playing field with China. So they're missing the story, and it's going to your point.
That's right. The president said today that China's way down now, and that he's told everybody to be patient. But Laura, I want to mention something else. Bias is not just, it doesn't come in the form of overtly one-sided, lopsided reporting. That's kind of easy to detect. Bias is also a selectivity of what gets covered and what does not. So just this week, you had the pool reporter from the New York Times say there was absolutely no news made when the president and Ivanka Trump and other office holders and high school students were in Tampa Bay at Tampa Bay Tech, so excited that the Perkins legislation had been reauthorized. It's going to benefit upwards of 11 million students across this country, but no news was made.
No,
just
you don't want to cover that.
Just today, in the briefing room, this is so important, just today in the briefing room, we had cabinet members come and talk about what they are doing in 2018 to stop meddling and interference in our elections.
But Kellyanne, guess what happened?
You know why?
No, guess what happened? Not only did they not cover it, Kellyanne, listen to what Chuck Todd said. Again, you had 4 or 5 top intel national security officials saying Russia meddled, we're going to stop it for the next time.
And this is what President Trump is doing.
Right, and this is what Chuck Todd said. Let's listen.
We begin tonight by trying to make sense of what happened this afternoon, and perhaps more importantly, why. For some, it's going to take more than one surprise briefing to convince them that what we heard today about cracking down on Russia has the full backing of the president, and that it was not an effort by a White House communications team desperate to turn the page from the other headaches they had been asked about all week.
Damned if they do, damned if they don't. Kellyanne, your reaction to Todd's point.
And I want to say something. Yeah, here's my reaction. In 2016, the president at that time, Barack Obama, and Clapper, and Brennan, and Comey, and others on their team had information that Russia was meddling, trying to interfere in our election, but they sat on it, they buried it, because I'm with her also meant with I'm going to bury the information we have about meddling. Fast forward, this president's in charge, his entire team is on task. The Secretary of Homeland Security said she's got a 50-state effort on way. They're investing in cyber and election security. Secretary Nielsen and Vice President Pence 2 days ago were in New York City for all the public to see. The media hardly covered this entire conference on cybersecurity and election security. But for this mainstream media, who, as you pointed out, covered the Russian story more than anything this calendar year, when it came to speaking from the podium about what this president's administration will do to stop it, to try to stop it, they're not covering it because it's not coming in the Manafort trial. It's not coming in the Mueller report. It's not coming out of the mouths of someone else. It's coming in a cohesive and positive fashion from this president and what he's going to do. So it's complete hypocrisy. Laura, if the mainstream media truly cared about election interference, they would be able to write a story or finish a sentence without mentioning Donald Trump's name.
All right,
they can't
Kellyanne,
do
we're
it.
out of time. We're out of time. Thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you. I had fun in the rain. Thank you.
All right, for the past few days, a certain cable news reporter has been dining out and whining about this scene from Tuesday's Trump rally.
No, ma'am. No, ma'am.
The day after, he basked in the afterglow of the insults with contrived dismay.
Honestly, it felt like we weren't in America anymore. I don't know how to put it any more plainly than that. Americans should not be treating their fellow Americans in this way.
Okay, I have a question. Do these guys ever think about how they treat America? Hearing reporters complain about the angry reception they get in red state America is kind of like having an arsonist lecture us about campfire safety. As Billy Joel sang, "We didn't start the fire." Now, I personally don't like anyone shouting swear words or giving reporters or anyone the finger, but I certainly can understand the frustration of the Trump voters. For much of the past 3 years, many in the press have been either underestimating or ridiculing both Trump and his supporters. And raise your hand if you're tired of journalists making themselves the center of every story.
I try to calmly talk to a lot of these folks at the rally last night to say, listen, hey, tell me what you want to talk about here. Why are you guys so upset with us? And they would kind of go through a list of questions. Most of the questions were about, why don't you guys report positive news about the president?
Okay, so why don't you report positive news about the president? I wonder why these people are so understandably upset. According to the Media Research Center, in the first 2 months of 2018, 91% of broadcast networks' coverage of Trump was negative. The favorite story, of course, was the Russia investigation. And of the time devoted to covering the administration, 1/4 of it, 24% of that airtime, was devoted to the Mueller probe. No other administration topic received that much attention, not even close. And when they do cover another topic, like immigration, for instance, it's 92% negative, only 8% positive. And you wonder why people are ticked off? It's not surprising that in a new survey by the research firm Brand Keys, Fox News is near the top of the trusted names in news. CNN down near the bottom. Of course, the media may not be great at objectivity, but they're total pros at blame deflection.
These opinions that these folks have at these rallies, they're shaped by what they see in the primetime hours of Fox News. It's very unfortunate, but it's a pitting of American against American, and honestly, it needs to stop.
The erosion of basic standards of civility and human decency continues. It's not just a Republican phenomenon, but we are being led down the drain by President Trump.
Oh, a little overstatement there, Jake. I mean, so it's our fault, or it's the president's fault that the press refuses to do no soul searching at all? It's none of the blame is theirs? Have they not seen those surveys that show trust in their network, their product, is at near an all-time low? A new poll from Quinnipiac found that a majority of all Americans disapprove of how the media covered Trump. Among Republicans, nearly 9 in 10 disapprove. But still, come on, it's the people who are the problem, not the press.
This kind of unfocused, visceral anger at the other side, or really neutral people like folks on the press corps, it can lead to this.
That's just beyond reprehensible comparison. I mean, we won't talk about Steve Scalise. We'll talk about that later. I don't recall the same level of concern over the violence at, let's say, Berkeley when conservatives speak, or outside the Trump rally in San Jose during the campaign. Remember when that guy was pummeled? When the left engages in not just harsh language, but criminal acts of violence, destroying property, putting police lives at risk, the media work overtime to understand the underlying anger and upset.
I see a lot of people expressing their humanity in the face of a candidate who has really built his candidacy on denouncing their humanity. And I mean, yeah, there's a few people out there who are not out there to actually protest, but at the end of the day, they accomplished their goal. They got on TV and they got their issues aired.
They have grievances. It's not like it's mindless or they just want violence. They're speaking up against someone who's really attacking their community.
We want you to know that our hearts are out there marching with them.
Did any of them bemoan the vile nature of the commentary or the signage at, let's say, the Women's March?
I didn't know devils could be resurrected, but I feel Hitler in these streets.
Yes, I'm angry. Yes, I am outraged. Yes, I have thought an awful lot about blowing up the White House.
Didn't Madonna Madge do all that yoga? I thought that was supposed to make you really calm and zen-like. Where were the liberal complaints about this rhetoric?
And with this kind of inspiration, I will go and take Trump out tonight.
I wish we were in high school, I could take him behind the gym. That's what I wish. How dare he say the things he does? Of course I want to punch him in the face.
Right. Where was all the media outrage about that? Did President Obama or other well-known Democrat leaders decry that approach, that language, that vitriol, that incitement to violence? Of course they did not. Because after all, President Trump, the people who supported him, continue to support him, they all deserve that and worse. And where were the media condemnations when women who were affiliated or support the president, work for the president, were harassed at restaurants, driven from movie theaters? The liberal media don't have any difficulty finding tough words to describe Trump supporters, though.
It's truly dangerous.
Yes.
We keep referring to his base. Well, I'm sorry, but the people we saw the other evening at that rally, if that's his base, it's deranged.
Deranged? Well, I guess he kind of is an expert on deranged, sitting across Joe Scarborough for all these years. But come on, the selective media outrage is laughable. It's also kind of sad, but come on. If it's directed at Trump, protest and violence are considered really patriotic and kind of cool. But otherwise, it must be condemned as dangerous. It's pretty simple. Look, the culture has been coarsened. The entertainment industry, music, films, billboards, television, everything is over-sexualized or too violent or just dumbed down altogether. So come on, this didn't start with Trump. It began about 50 years ago when liberals were on a mission to kick God out of the schools and when they began ripping down our basic institutions of civic life. And as this happened, Flyover America felt demeaned by the dominant culture, which came to see them as backwater, intolerant, and yes, even racist. And this just made them furious and resentful. But then came Donald Trump.
Our economy is soaring, our jobs are booming, factories are pouring back into our country, they're coming from all over the world. And the forgotten men and women of the United States are forgotten no more.
You can almost hear the peals of laughter at certain cable news studios after he says stuff like that. But most in that crowd and the audience across America, they like what they hear there. They don't want to be forgotten. My friends in the media, you cannot ridicule and attack a major part of the American electorate. You can't disparage them and the president they voted for every day and then expect gratitude and cordiality in return. But I hope everybody will take a breath and learn to treat each other with civility and respect. The protesters, the president, and the media and the way they cover them all. And that's the angle.